want to talk about is Viewfinder. Viewfinder is a little complicated. I've only seen it maybe once or twice, mostly because it's not my favorite type of anime. It's one of those gang ones where, you know, one gang member is trying to get with this ordinary person. It's about this photographer named Takaba and this gang leader Asumi. Takaba ended up taking pictures of Asumi and finding out secrets about him, and then he posted them into, well, he didn't post them actually, he put it in the newspaper because he's part of the newspaper. And then Asami was all like, oh no you didn't. So Asami like kidnapped Takaba and basically rapes him, so that way he doesn't do anything like that ever again to Asami. And Takaba like doesn't even ignore the fact that, because like after he was done raping him, Takaba goes back into the taking pictures of the gang business thing, which is so stupid. I mean, because he was freaked the fuck out when he was raping him, and he was even crying, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you going back into that business if you're just gonna get raped? And he does. He gets raped again by Fei Long. Fei Long raped him. This long-haired bastard that everybody hates. He only did that because he thought Takaba was Asami's special one or whatever, and Takaba didn't think he was, even though he is, because Asami, like, I don't know, he thinks that I guess he does think he's special because Asami told Takaba that he owns Takaba, and if anybody else touches him, he's gonna have to replenish his thing or whatever. Taka was like, what? There are only 2 OVAs, and there's an extra one, but it's only like 15 minutes long. The 15-minute long one is like, it's so stupid. Takaba gets drunk, and he's like complaining to his friends about Asami, and they're all like, who the fuck is Asami? And then he told them that he had sex with them, and they're all like, oh my god, this guy's a homo. And Takaba ends up being dragged home, and then Asami saw it, and he was like, what are you doing? And these guys were like, please take him off our hands. And Takaba's like, you guys are traitors! Because Takaba doesn't really, I don't know if he complains about Asami a lot, but I think he does like him. I like Viewfinder, but, I mean, I don't watch it a lot. There is a manga to it, and if you want to read more, the manga is better than the anime, because in OVAs, they always head straight to the point. In mangas, they add more detail into it, so there's a lot that the OVA missed. The next one I'm going to talk about is sensitive pornograph, and I told you in the last video that there are 2 of them that are pretty graphic. Well, these next 2 I'm going to tell you about is pretty graphic, and sensitive pornograph, well, I mean, it already sounds pretty graphic when I tell you it. This is the one that you can actually see everything, like the man's dick going in the guy's asshole and everything. It's, oh goodness me. I could, like, I mentioned this again. I told you guys that I was just getting used to yaoi. I've seen a few other yaois before, sensitive pornograph, and I thought I could handle it. I did not know that they would show everything as soon as I watched it. First 3 minutes, there's already stuff going on. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like covering one eye, and the other eye's like watching it. There are actually 2 parts to sensitive pornograph. Like, there's only 1 episode to the OVA, but there are 2 parts. And the first part's not my favorite because well, it's kind of boring, and the second part is my favorite. But first part is about these 2 authors. I think they're mangakas actually. And one of them looks like a girl apparently, even though I think he looks exactly like the guy. But whatever. But yeah, they both end up meeting each other, and well, one of the authors is like just starting out to be an author, and then he meets the other author who he has been in love with ever since he was like a kid, because he's like 20 and the other guy's like 32. Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, they ended up having sex. They even had this weird relationship. They weren't like necessarily dating, even though he did ask him out and he said yes, they weren't dating though, because every time they got together they just had sex and then he'd leave and go home. So I don't call that dating, but in Japan I guess that could be different, and you know, things are weird up in Japan, no offense. But yeah, I guess they're just sex friends or whatever. They can be whatever they want to be. um, but yeah, the young author, I can't remember his name. Actually, I can't remember any of their names. But the young author is feeling conflicted because he's not sure if his mangaka older author is in love with him. Because he's basically saying he loves him all the time, and the older one is like, I love you too, but he doesn't really put feeling into it, you know? You know how that is. You might not. But it'll get like that in life, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, he starts getting jealous of the fact that he starts getting upset about the fact that he's always putting his feelings into everything, and that guy isn't. But, they ended up making up later, you know, making up, and their way of making up is pretty graphic. So, but yeah, they made up, and he felt sorry. Like we come to find out that the older one didn't want to, you know, intrude on him or anything. Didn't want to disturb anything that he was doing, because they're both mangakas, and mangakas require a lot of time and a lot of work, and they barely have any free time themselves. Yeah. The second part is my favorite, and it's creepy as fuck. Like, seriously. Oh my goodness. It's about this one guy. He, is a pet sitter. Like, he put an ad in the paper, he's a pet sitter. And one of his clients called him in, well, it wasn't really, it was a new guy. Called him in and asked him to take care of his rabbit. And the other guy was like, "Wow, I get to babysit a rabbit." And then it's so weird, guys, because when he walks in the door, like, he gets the door open and everything, he looks for the guy, and then the rabbit, and then he heard something like banging in the closet. He's like, "Why would you keep a rabbit in the closet?" And I was thinking the same thing too. But then when you open the door, it's this kid like tied up and around his arms and his legs, and he's got this ball thing in his mouth. And the guy freaked out. He's like, "Oh my god, it's a dead body." But then the kid moved, and he's like, "Oh, he's alive." And then he freed him, and the guy was absolutely naked, okay? He was naked. And this guy's like freaking the fuck out. He's like, "Why is there a person in someone's closet?" But the other guy was like, "You were calling my name." And he's like, "But I was here to I'm a pet sitter." And the other guy was like laughing. And I couldn't understand why he was, but I was like, "Okay, laugh about it. You were tied up and you're naked inside a closet, okay." But then that guy just like up and climbs on top of him, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll make you feel good." I was like, "What are you talking about? He tried to save you. Why didn't you leave the goddamn place?" And then it switches over scenes, and this guy is like sitting in his car, and it has a video camera. Like, there's a video camera above them, and it's a video in his car of those two having sex, and that guy's just smirking while smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, "Well, what? Huh?" And this guy's laughing. I'm like, "What the fuck, you freaking creeper?" And it was weird. But you guys, you find out that guy owns the apartment and that kid. So, I guess he does that for enjoyment. I don't know why he just doesn't have sex with the kid himself, but whatever. But yeah, the guy that climbed on top of him ended up having sex, and this guy, the pet sitter, is just like freaking out. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" And I'm all like, "Oh my god, this poor kid." But he's like, "This actually feels pretty good." And then he starts like going with the flow or whatever. And the guy on top of him is like, "What are you doing? You don't have to do that." And then the other guy's like, "I'm gonna do it anyway." And they get so into it. And I'm like, how can a straight guy turn gay all of a sudden? But I don't know. I guess if, you have something on a man's dick and it starts rubbing it, then they gotta join in or something. I don't know. I'm sorry, I got really weird then. Anyway. But yeah, they ended up having sex, and the guy's like, so is that man keeping you here? And the guy's all like, yeah, he's keeping me here by force. And he didn't know what to do, so he just ran away. And I'm like, what the fuck? Bring him with you. But no, he didn't. So yeah, the guy tried to get out of being with that weird creepy guy in the car, and the weird creepy guy beat the shit out of him, and then the guy ended up finding the pet sitter, and then they ended up becoming a couple, and I was all happy, I guess. Well, I can't guess that I was happy. I don't know. It's just a weird way to start a relationship. Sensitive Pornograph has a manga to it, but I mean, if you watched it before you read it, well, it's basically the same thing. It's only got 7 chapters, and I like it. I've watched Sensitive Pornograph a lot, actually. If you guys watch it and you're like listening to me and they're all like, why did you watch this so many times? I'm sorry, but I didn't watch it for the sex scenes, I promise. I watched it for the romance. Okay, maybe both. But anyway.